As part of my trip to Mexico, I had the opportunity to fly on Aeromexico's two variants of the Boeing 787, both the Dash 8 and Dash 9. Initially, both long-haul flights of this trip were scheduled on the 787-8, but Aeromexico started alternating between the variants in the route to Buenos Aires, which gave me the chance to fly on the 787-9 as well. This being Aeromexico's flagship aircraft, featuring their newest long-haul cabins, how does it compare to the 787-8? Is it so much better? Or actually, is it any better? Let's take a look. I've already covered the whole experience with Aeromexico in another video, linked above, where you can see more about the service. Today, we'll just focus on the hard products on each of the 787 variants and compare them. Let's start with the 787-9, which I flew from Buenos Aires to Mexico City. It was a 3-year-old aircraft featuring Aeromexico's latest long-haul interiors. The first impression of the cabin upon boarding was positive. The seats look very nice at a first glimpse. The cabin is sleek. Once settled, I found appropriate legroom at the seat. And this went on throughout the flight as well, while reclining my seat and having the one in front reclined too. There was always enough space to stretch my legs. In terms of comfort, it was okay, featuring an adjustable headrest which helps at the time of catching some sleep, even though it didn't support the weight of my head properly. Also, the recline was good, but at least my seat slowly turned back into its upright position, not keeping the recline. As far as seat features go, it features an in-flight entertainment screen with USB and audio ports, as well as an adjustable tray table and a seat pocket with a division for the safety card, which I always find as a nice touch. There's also a universal power outlet below the seat. Another aspect to emphasize on is the in-flight entertainment system, which is not the same in between the variants. The 787-9 featured responsive IFE screens with a selection of movies that I considered a bit lacking. In contrast to the 787-8, the 787-9 featured an interactive in-flight map, whilst the Dash 8 was older in that regard, featuring a clearly outdated in-flight map version, which wasn't even interactive. Both aircraft still had pretty much the same content selection, at least the same number of options, but I found some live TV channels on the 787-8, one of which was broadcasting some tennis, which made my flight back home on this aircraft much more enjoyable. Now that we've mentioned the 787-8 and its in-flight entertainment, let's talk about the rest of its features, starting with the seats on board. The cabin, from the go, has a bit of a more vintage look if you compare it to the 787-9. However, when I sat down, I realized the legroom was even better than on the Dash 9. This remained during the whole flight, even with the seat in front reclined. I was very surprised by the space I had to stretch my legs all throughout the flight. Also, I found these seats to be more comfortable. Not that the ones on the Dash 9 weren't, but I had a very comfortable flight back home, even when it was a daytime flight. The features on this aircraft are exactly the same as on the one we've covered before. In-flight entertainment screen, audio and USB ports, tray table, seat pocket, and a universal power outlet below. Both aircraft also feature Wi-Fi on board, but it was only in the Dash 8 that it worked. More information on the packages available in the video linked above previously. The downside of this aircraft is the in-flight entertainment system, which as mentioned, is a bit more dated than the one on the 787-9. Not because of the content, which is pretty much the same in both, and as I've already said, is quite basic, but especially because it was a little less responsive, and some other little details like the in-flight map, which was an older, not interactive version. Ironically though, the best part of it was also in the in-flight entertainment system, this being the live sports channel, which I'm not sure was in the 787-9 as well. So, having overlooked my experience flying both aircraft, I believe you're now expecting me to come to a conclusion. Well, if I have to be honest, I enjoyed my flight on the 787-8 the most. I found it more comfortable, which allowed me to sleep a bit more despite it being a daytime flight. Legroom was also excellent, and the fact that I could watch some tennis definitely made it a bit better. Still, the experience on the 787-9 was also really good. The seats are still very comfortable, The in-flight entertainment is a bit more responsive and therefore better, considering they have the same selection of course, and the cabin looks nicer if you ask me. All in all, I'd take my flight on the Dash 8, but wouldn't mind flying on the Dash 9 either. The overall onboard experience with Aeromexico, as I have been mentioning throughout my latest videos, was very good. This being it for today's video, if you made it to this point and found the content useful, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so as not to miss any of the future uploads. This is the last special review video from my trip to Mexico, from which you can find all the videos clicking on the playlist linked above. Next up is a terminal tour from Cancun International Airport's Terminal 4, and then we'll be off to another trip, which is still uncertain. Anyway, I'll see you next Friday. On to the next one!